Hello there, time now for Back Pages tonight here in Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us on the show, we've got the big guns out tonight. Charlie Wyatt, the football editor of The Sun, and football writer and broadcaster Henry Winter. Welcome to you both, gentlemen. Let's quickly run through the back pages. Have some of that is the splash in the Daily Mirror as Kai Havertz's header sets Arsenal on their way to a comfortable win over Paris Saint-Germain. Elsewhere, the paper claims Manchester United players would be open to Ruud Van Nistelrooy becoming the club's next head coach, should Erik be removed. Ten Hag's future will be a talking point tonight's show, and the Telegraph's Mike McGrath reports that the Dutchman is being backed by senior players to turn their fortunes around. The Times carries good news, some rare good news for Manchester United, as Bruno Fernandes has his red card ban overturned ahead of a crucial week for the club. Whilst the Guardian covers that humbling defeat for Celtic, thrashed 7-1 in Dortmund, their second heaviest European loss ever. But we shall start with tonight's Champions League action, where Arsenal were comfortable winners against an underpowered Paris Saint-Germain at the Emirates. Have some of that is the headline in the Mirror, Henry. And we are seeing just this evolution of this Arsenal side, where they're becoming such a tough side to beat. And they are now, not just a great chance of doing something in the Premier League, but they've got to be serious contenders for the Champions League as well.
Well, they have to be. You looked at the way they played tonight, the adventure and the set-piece threat in the first half, the goals from Havertz, an outstanding header, Donnarumma, a bit vulnerable as he came out. He should have punched the ball, but Havertz, absolutely an old-school number 9 header. That was terrific. Then Saka's free kick. We know the work that Nicolas Jauvert does on the training ground, the set-piece threat they've got. And Saka delivered there. And then, as we've seen in recent games with Arsenal, how well they can defend. And it was almost like they were sort of resting their legs for the rigours ahead. They were defending in 2 blocks of 4 with Havertz and Trossard sort of running around in front of them. And it was very much a controlled performance. So, yeah, a very intelligent performance. But it was the swagger of Arsenal, the confidence. They look like they belong at this level. OK, it's not the strongest PSG team. They were missing Dembélé for disciplinary reasons, whatever. Barcola was still a threat on the left. But all over the pitch, whether it was David Raya just in goal, whether it was Saliba, outstanding, pure Rolls Royce at centre half, and then Havertz up front, and Declan Rice was outstanding in midfield. So yeah, Arsenal definitely look like they belong in this elite league.
As you said, they look like they belong. And Charlie, I think for so many years, the latter years of the Arsene Wenger years, pretty much from as soon as Patrick Vieira and Fabien Petit had moved on until kind of now, they kind of had a soft underbelly, Arsenal, didn't they? Whereas now, they're the ones that bully the opposition.
They did. I mean, they always used to get out the group stages, didn't they? And then sort of got knocked out by this sort of, Bayern Munich or Barcelona. I know it's a different format now, but Arsenal belong there. We can see that, as Henry said. They look so comfortable. I think tonight, just to see out of Paris Saint-Germain so comfortably, so easily, and they didn't really click into fifth gear. They didn't have to, and that's Arsenal all over really this season. They've just been so impressive. And Mikel Arteta is never going to admit it, but I think he would really fancy Arsenal going all the way to Munich in the final. Lots of things have got to happen right for them, but I think both in the league and in Europe, they look such a threat. They're just so professional. They've got class, and they've got the know-how of the previous couple of seasons when they've obviously had some pain. But yeah, while last season it was good to be back in the Champions League, they're no longer in it just for the ride. I think they will take themselves or consider themselves as serious contenders.
Let's move on to Manchester City. Pretty easy going for them tonight as well. A 4-0 win out in Bratislava. Fill your boots is the headline. And, it's been a strange start to the season for Phil Foden. Only a second start tonight, but it will do his confidence no end of good to have got a goal tonight, Henry.
Yeah, absolutely. The player of the year. And we're going into an England week, and it'll be interesting to see who Lee Carsley plays at number 10, because Phil Foden tonight was outstanding, an assist and a goal. We know that the damage that he can do as a number 10, but then you look at Cole Palmer at the weekend and you think, wow, not forgetting sort of Jude Bellingham and all the options that Carsley's got there. So absolutely, on the photo recovery, the back page of Charlie's paper. I mean, it's great to see him playing like that. And again, also with Manchester City, they had Nunes and Gundogan sort of playing deeper double pivots, which, given that the issues having lost Rodri for the season, that was very encouraging. Particularly Gundogan scoring on his for his first goal on his return. So yeah, a very constructive evening for Manchester City, and also for England's perspective, seeing Phil Foden back flying like this.
And Henry touches upon it there, Charlie. It remains to be seen just how big a loss Rodri will be for Manchester City over the rest of the season. But he was pivotal last season, and we know Pep Guardiola is effusive in his praise when it comes to Rodri. Early stages at the moment, but they are huge boots to fill.
Yeah, they're going to miss him, and I don't think tonight's game in Slovakia was any great indicator on how City are going to cope without him. That result wasn't a surprise whatsoever, was it? I think Guardiola would have been disappointed with anything less, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, much tougher tests for City. I think they are going to really miss him, and that's why I think Arsenal have got a great chance to maybe win the title this year. But as for Phil Foden, yeah, it's good to see him play again. To be honest, it's not just him who's struggled coming out of the Euros for City. We've had John Stones and Kyle Walker as well. Yeah, they're all going to have to be patient. They're all going to have some part to play this year. But equally, as Henry mentioned, it is going to be an England week next week. Lee Carsley will name his squad on Thursday. And ahead of that game against Greece, although Foden's done well tonight, I actually definitely want to see Cole Palmer play as number 10, without doubt, for that one.
Just before we move on to obviously a very disappointing night for Celtic tonight, I think we're all still trying to get our heads around this new format for the Champions League, and it's hard to know how much jeopardy there is at this stage, 2 games in, but I suppose it's just about getting off to as fast a sprint start as you can, and if you can get 6 points on the board after 2 games, you're in a great position come January.
Well, the players will just be focused on the game. I mean, they might look at the table if they've got big enough televisions. I mean, in a way, you want that table to actually be only to be shown after 3 or 4 games, because it's just bizarre. It looks like a sort of shopping list at the moment. So yeah, look, they're up and running. Don't think there are any injuries tonight, which is so important in this crazily intense season. And we've seen a bit of a rhythm going into these games. And I don't know whether the clubs have been talking or the players via the PFA have been talking, but each club, each team, each dressing room has raised the issues of overplaying. So clearly, the fact that they are thinking of pacing themselves a bit.
Too early to say whether you're a fan or not, Charlie?
Sorry, say that again.
Of the new format, is it too early to say whether you're a fan or not?
I think it will definitely work. It's a bit sort of slow to start with, isn't it? And as Henry said, the table does look bizarre. But I think a lot of the group stages the last few years have ended up being quite dull. And I think there will be great jeopardy. It will only probably spring to life in December. Obviously, we've got 2 rounds in January, but there will be jeopardy. It will be exciting. And there's not really many people who would admit that the last couple of rounds of the previous format have been exciting, because, Manchester City have always qualified after, basically a couple of matches. And while we fully expect Arsenal and City and Liverpool to be in the, maybe if not the top 8, the top 16, I think there'll be some big teams really struggle, and of course there are going to be 12 teams just get eliminated at the end of January, and so I think it will work, and obviously the same goes for the Europa League as well. But at the moment it still feels as though it's yet to get going, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, Manchester hammering Slovan Bratislava tonight. A week ago it was Celtic who were hammering Slovan Bratislava, but talk about a change in fortunes. On the other end of a hammering tonight, 7-1 defeat out in Dortmund. Hoops humbled by Bundesliga side, it says on the Sky Sports website. And Henry, this will always be the stick that is used to beat Brendan Rodgers with. And no matter what he does domestically, he can't quite break through that glass ceiling when it comes to Europe with Celtic.
Well, first, Borussia Dortmund, particularly at home, are a terrific team. Better teams than Celtic will struggle there. But I think the narrative with Celtic will be looking at Brendan Rodgers' tactics, and almost as if he was setting up for a game in Scotland, in such an important, challenging environment as Borussia Dortmund, 4-3-3, but open in midfield. Could he have brought another midfielder in? Could he have bolstered his defence? I mean, I admire Brendan Rodgers' philosophy to attack Borussia Dortmund as if he's attacking St Johnstone, but it's still a gamble, as it showed tonight.
Yeah, Charlie, it's difficult to be critical of them because, as Henry says, it is a tough place to go, and they won their first game by a comfortable margin as well. So where does this leave Celtic 2 games in?
Well, it's quite obvious that they've got to be good at home, doesn't it, I think? And let's not forget, it may have been 7, but it could have been 10 or 11, but for the keeper and some really key saves. And that would have been obviously a huge blow if they'd lost by any more. Lots of thinking to do for both Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic team. But I still think they could do it. They've got another, 6 games. So, it's their home form that's key. And, of course, they've got to be in the top 24. So, they're certainly not out of it. But, pretty embarrassing tonight. Yeah, those games at Parkhead will be crucial. And it is another tough away match for Celtic next, away to Atalanta. We shall take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the back pages and we'll be discussing plenty about Manchester United, including this in Charlie's paper, The Sun, as Benny McCarthy puts the boot into Erik ten Hag. Welcome back. You're watching Back Pages tonight, and welcome back also to Charlie Wyatt, the football editor of The Sun, and sports writer and broadcaster Henry Winter. Gentlemen, Manchester United are the gift that keep on giving. It feels like we talk about them every day. Some reports, Mike McGrath in The Telegraph, saying that Erik ten Hag is being backed by senior players to turn things around at Manchester United. Conflicting reports elsewhere saying that some players have had enough of him. Henry, I'll come to you first. What is the truth of the matter?
Well, good question. I mean, it's the Old Trafford okey-cokey, in, out with Ten Hag after every game, almost like every half. There's a sort of debate online. Less so actually inside the stadium, where the Manchester United fans have been magnificent. And I think in any other club and any other support, Ten Hag would have gone by now. I mean, it's interesting, the sort of the conflicting reports of some support him. Probably the players who were with him at Ajax and have a loyalty to him and has brought them to this great club. And then maybe 1 or 2 others who are either not in the team or whatever are briefing, or their agents or family members are briefing or let it be known that they're not so happy with him. But I mean, the key decision is made upstairs with Ineos. And you can get rid of Erik ten Hag, and he probably will go at some point during the season. You can put Ruud Van Nistelrooy in as an interim, who'd be, I think, the 8th or 9th caretaker or permanent manager since Sir Alex left 11 years ago. But you've got to look beyond that. It's not simply about Ten Hag. It's about the culture of the club, which has been endemic since the Glazers came in, and it's proliferated post Sir Alex Ferguson, post David Gill, in that it all seems to be about the individuals. It's about money. It's not really been about what this great football club should be about, which is about the football. It's about the pursuit of trophies. It's about team before self, and they've not done that. So absolutely, they may well get rid of Erik ten Hag. It's probably a surprise he's lasted so long, but there's systemic issues at Manchester United that have also to be dealt with by Ineos.
Charlie, as Henry says, that this sort of when rather than if situation with Erik ten Hag, it's impossible not to feel sort of quite a deal of sympathy for him, because Manchester United's hierarchy were very open in courting other managers before that FA Cup final, that surprise result in the FA Cup final. Then they were kind of backed into a corner, and now it kind of feels like he doesn't really have a leg to stand on.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's carried himself really impressively. It's been really difficult for him. Ultimately, his management hasn't been good enough, and his signings haven't been good enough. And in terms of some of the reports about the players, I think they are behind him. But that's not quite enough. But equally, those players that are behind him, I think they are still talking about the fact that they know that he's probably going to get the sack, because Manchester United are not getting any better. They're going around in circles. They're not an improvement on the team that finished 8th last season. And we saw that on Sunday, regardless of Fernandes getting sent off, they'd have lost that game by the same scoreline anyway. And as Henry said, fair play to the Man United fans. That they were right behind the manager, still right behind the team. They weren't getting on the backs of the players. But there's going to come a point, obviously, a really tough game in Porto on Thursday. I'm going out there tomorrow, so Ten Hag will be facing the media at 7 o'clock, and that will be a difficult game. And of course, they're at Aston Villa on Sunday, so it's not getting any easier for him, and that's why, as I said, it does feel the end game. And I think Dan Ashworth, quite soon is going to be looking to appoint another manager, having sacked Ten Hag.
And Charlie, just staying with you, because on the back page of your paper, The Sun, these quotes from Benny McCarthy saying he lacks passion, he wastes the top talents. I mean, it's one thing with Manchester United that they don't seem to have any sort of style of play. You look at Arsenal, Manchester City, Tottenham, Aston Villa, you know what their style of play is. Manchester United don't seem to have a style. That's one thing. But when you're also saying that the manager lacks the ability to manage, to get the best out of players, that's almost an even bigger concern.
Yeah, he certainly hasn't got the best out of the players. And obviously, Ronaldo was a difficult situation. I don't think Ronaldo was particularly helpful either. But in general, these players are underperforming, and equally, the players they are signing just don't seem to be at the levels that Manchester United really need. And of course, they're not helped by the fact they've got a captain who I don't think is a very good Manchester United captain. And obviously, he's got a reprieve from his red card, but I'm not sure Fernandes still being available for the Aston Villa game is any great help, to be honest.
And Henry, we should clarify, Benny McCarthy, a former number 2 to Erik ten Hag, so he's qualified to talk about this. When number 2 comes out and says something like that, I mean, how concerned would you be if you're a Manchester United fan hearing that?
Well, I'm sure Manchester United fans will want to listen to the whole podcast in which Benny McCarthy talks, and he describes Erik ten Hag as the top tactically. He's very effusive in his praise of Ten Hag, the tactician. He says, yes, as Charlie's mentioned, the fact that he doesn't appear to sort of have the passion and to stand on the edge of the technical area and show some urgency to the players. And, the players were looking around, and if they want inspiration, they're not getting that in terms of the body language from the manager. But what Benny McCarthy also says, which is slightly buried down some of the reports, but really jumps out in the podcast, is that he says that some of the Manchester United players just weren't trying hard enough in training. He said Diogo Dalot and Bruno Fernandes, absolutely, and obviously there's a local connection there in terms of where he was giving the interview. But he was sort of praising them for their intensity and their commitment in training, and questioned the commitment of some others. Now, that might have been players who left in the summer. He doesn't actually name them. But if I was a Manchester United fan, that would be the thing that would most alarm me about the Benny McCarthy interview, the fact that he questioned the commitment of some of the players.
And as I said earlier on, Manchester United do seem to be the gift that keeps on giving. There's so many different talking points about them. Martin Ziegler has this report, Charlie, that the murky world of PSR raising its head again, that Manchester United face fresh PSR challenge if they fail to reach the Champions League. On the evidence of what we've seen so far this season, and certainly that capitulation against Tottenham on Sunday, it's very difficult to imagine that they're going to be finishing in top 4 this season and could face PSR, another sort of PSR difficulty.
Yeah, obviously they've got lots of contracts and performance-based deals, and they could, was it £10 million they could lose if they don't get into the Champions League? I mean, they're not going to do that, are they? It'd be, incredible if they managed to do that. The one thing is maybe they win the Europa League, which is probably the only way I can see them getting to the Champions League next year. But really difficult times for United, and I don't think any of us can really see it getting any better at the moment.
The one little ray of sunshine for them today, I suppose, Henry, or is it indeed a ray of sunshine, is that Bruno Fernandes is available for them this weekend for that trip that Charlie mentioned to Villa Park. If we sort of talk about, first of all, about the process of that red card, because it came out of the pocket pretty quickly and VAR refused to overturn it. Here we are, 2 days later, the red card has been overturned. It's a bit farcical when it's a situation like that, isn't it?
So we're effectively having a review of a decision. So absolutely, I mean, he probably is looking back on it the right decision, and Bruno Fernandes is now cleared to play. Whether that actually helps Ten Hag, because I agree with Charlie, I don't think he's a natural leader. I think the way he behaves at times on the pitch, throwing his arms around, his attitude towards referees. I mean, he obviously cares and he's committed to the team, and you can see that. Benny McCarthy was alluding to that, but I don't think it sends out the best message. So do they actually need him in these games? I mean, they do have options in that position. You could play Eriksen there. I mean, it depends on Mount's fitness. You could play him in there. So, or you could sort of bolster midfield and make it a little bit less easy to drive through, as James Maddison and Dejan Kulusevski were doing on Sunday. So, yeah, maybe it's a sort of mixed blessing. But I think, as you say, this long-winded decision has come to the correct conclusion ultimately.
Let's move on to what is going to be a huge night, biggest night for 42 years, under the lights at Villa Park for Aston Villa tomorrow night. And the back page of the Star, sort it or we'll get caned, is what Unai Emery is saying. Essentially, if they defend like they did against Ipswich on Sunday, then they're going to be in big trouble because England's captain will be having a field day. But first of all, how excited will Aston Villa fans be about tomorrow night under the lights?
I think it's going to be a terrific atmosphere. This is what clubs like Aston Villa dream of, isn't it? You know, getting back into the Champions League. Of course, you know, they won the European Cup 42 years ago against Bayern Munich. So it'll be an emotional night. And obviously there'll be memories of Gary Shaw as well, and his passing. So, yeah, it will be an emotion-charged evening, a terrific night for the fans. They've obviously got to improve the defending. And, of course, Bayern Munich will be there with, we think, Harry Kane. He trained today, although tonight Vincent Kompany at his press conference has said we're going to make a decision tomorrow. But I'm sure Kane will be determined to play in what will be a terrific match, I'm sure.
And Henry, Ollie Watkins versus Harry Kane. That's how it's obviously going to be billed tomorrow night. Ollie Watkins saying he's coming after Harry Kane's England spot. I mean, he's got the captain's armband in the first place, Harry Kane, so it's going to be a difficult spot to take. But that's the mouth-watering clash tomorrow night.
Oh, absolutely. And Ollie Watkins will be absolutely up for this. He's playing against Upamecano, who's in decent form, and Kim as well. And look, Bayern Munich will set traps for him, but it's fantastic. Can you imagine what it's going to be like with him, for Ollie Watkins, running towards the Holte End? And Villa Park has just been transformed by Unai Emery on the pitch in terms of the players, how well they're playing. You look at Morgan Rogers, how well he's fitted in, but also just the atmosphere around the whole ground. I mean, it's an electric place to go to. And when the Holte End hears that Champions League anthem, well, it'll be drowned out with the noise.
It's going to be special indeed. Charlie, Henry, thank you for your time as always, and join us again on Wednesday night when our guests, with Martin Hardy and Riyad Al Samarrai, reacting to that huge night for Aston Villa.